Hey, I'm Shrenik. Behind me is Ravi, and we're the founders of Sunrise. We're working to make smarter psychotherapy a reality. So mental health conditions are a massive social and economic problem. It's estimated that 1 in 5 of all Americans has a mental health condition, but 2/3 of those diagnosed get zero treatment whatsoever. Now, some populations have this much worse than others. For example, more police officers and firefighters actually die from suicides than from the physical wounds that they suffer on calls. But it takes another example to realize that this isn't a problem we can solve by just throwing money at it. The VA loses 20 veterans every day to suicide. Many of you have probably heard that. But most people don't know that the VA stretches itself to spend over $8 billion a year on therapists and other care resources that don't reach those who need it the most. The majority of veterans dead by suicide last year weren't in any form of VA care. So we at Sunrise attack this issue through a mobile app for text-based psychotherapy scaled with natural language processing. So we broaden access to care for patients, but also give today's overburdened providers the means to scale to the true magnitude of this problem. Our team's experiences run the full gamut of healthcare and AI, from seeing these conditions firsthand as first responders to actually building AI products in both multinational corporations and startups, as well as from working with some of the best medical experts in the world in psychiatry at Johns Hopkins. Now that you've heard a bit about us, let's jump straight into the demo. So here you can see Ravi signing into Sunrise as a user. Users sign in and join groups anonymously, which greatly reduces their fear of stigma and judgment. Groups are comprised of 5 to 7 users and are moderated by a therapist. Once accepted into a group, a user can text his peer support network at any time, from anywhere, through a group text app, as well as participate in more scheduled therapy sessions via VoIP conference calling with the therapist. What we do here is marry the persistence of peer support with the clinical efficacy of therapy. But it's impossible to expect a therapist to read every single message generated on our platform. And that's why we've developed advanced NLP algorithms to run on user text messages and automatically detect content that has suicidality or other intent that requires the intervention of a provider. Let's jump straight into this technology in action. Here you can see our moderator dashboard. Now, most messages generated by our users don't require any form of clinical intervention, and they're visualized as green points on this graph, whereas red represents messages that require supervision and potentially a therapist intervention. So now we catch simple things like, I want to kill myself, but the real nuance in what we do is more evident in a sentence like this. I want to walk out into a lake and watch as the ripples go out as I go under. No specific negative words, but we can understand the latent suicidal ideation behind this sentence. What's more is we can flag a response like sounds cool to me, which is only negative because of the context in which it's uttered. Now, what these tools do is they allow therapists to focus their time and energy on the users who need help exactly when they need that help, greatly enhancing their efficiency and broadening their overall patient capacity to reduce the cost of care itself. On a longer timescale, this means we can catch complications early and reduce the number of crisis situations within an organization, as well as give an institution insight into its population's true need for mental health care. All right, let's get back to the slides. So, because of these gains that we offer at scale, we deploy with a B2B SaaS enterprise model, where we license out this technology to organizations that already have an infrastructure of mental health care providers to make them more efficient. By utilizing this existing infrastructure, we can stay lean as a technology company and get revenue from institutions and provide services to end users completely for free. What we're doing at Sunrise is leaps and bounds over the existing solutions for mental health care, which I'll visualize for you here with 2 parameters. A y-axis representing accessibility, which is a combination of affordability and ease of use, as well as an x-axis representing toxicity, which I'm going to talk more about soon. So traditional therapy, face-to-face, has been the clinical standard for decades, but it's expensive, hard to access, and suffers from atrocious retention. To solve this, we saw startups that let you text a therapist from your phone, like Talkspace, emerge. But their one-to-one model is pretty unscalable, so they're priced out of the reach of most consumers. This means hundreds of thousands of people have no option but online groups like Reddit and Yik Yak, where the anonymity they find online gives people the security to share what's actually on their mind. However, this freedom comes at a cost: toxicity. And the online trolling we're all too familiar with can manifest itself here as users literally telling people with depression to go kill themselves. Now, we take the best parts of all of these solutions by taking the greater relatability you have with groups in an environment kept non-toxic through our technology. Our early adopters include universities, police departments, and fire departments, organizations with some of the most stigmatized cultures that have the greatest use for an app like ours that emphasizes peer support. Once we validated our model there, we'll scale to a vertical worth over $1.5 billion in potential annual revenue that includes larger hospitals, the federal government, and deploying our NLP tools as an API service. Currently, we're live at multiple pilot sites, some funded by Johns Hopkins and the NIH, with the aim of validating out our technology and developing population-specific language models. Once we finish these pilots, we can hit the ground running because we already have $4.5 million in commitments from major metropolitan cities and national healthcare chains. We're scaling as we speak, so if you want to join this list, contact us at sunrisehealth.co/disrupt and bring your mental health infrastructure into the 21st century. Now, we're happy to take your questions.
Why don't we start with Mara? Yeah.
Good job. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you trained the system to begin with. Like, where do you guys get all this data? It seems like a really hard NLP problem. People would go in multiple tangents, I guess, in these conversations.
So to begin with the data question, so first we just launched it. We had pilots with actual users in this new modality. Okay. So we launched at University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins University, and we collected this really rich data set from these pilots. Apart from that, we bootstrapped, and we partnered with online anonymous social media platforms. So you saw Reddit, and then there are other smaller forums which are specific to each population. So there are specific populations and specific forums for like veterans or police officers. So we took and bootstrapped the model with that data.
Okay, thank you.
Spencer.
Can you just talk a little bit about beyond sort of peer-to-peer support and the intervention that the actual therapists do? Do you have any content that you provide to really give people kind of almost like a personal methodology for self-improvement? How do you do that?
Absolutely, and it's a very important question because the content that we push out needs to strike a fine balance between engagement and therapeutic nature. Right. And we've started to gamify the entire process of recovery, where some people become better, then become mentors for other people. Apart from that, we have CBT modules, starting from the most basic, which is just the diamond exercise to separate out the thoughts, feelings, and actions, and then more complicated stuff, which helps people all communicate. One of the other advantages is when these people do these exercises, they can all come back and talk about how it made them feel, and that increases the bonding between the groups.
Matt?
Thank you. Obviously, a very important topic. So AI is great, but AI only works 90% of the time, and this is literally a matter of life and death.
It is.
How do you think of mitigating the risk?
Absolutely. So we have multiple different response systems. The first one is if Shrenik is having a bad day, I can flag content that needs therapist supervision. And the beauty of that is it becomes a new data point. And because we have online learning algorithms, our algorithms don't make the same mistake twice. So we understand very nuanced linguistics, but also what we found, lingo. Because the police officers and veterans have so much lingo that we can't actually understand all of it. But using this, we understand more nuances. Apart from that, therapists can also flag content. And beyond that, we go to specific population forums and rich data sites to understand the language before we go in.
So first of all, thank you for actually tackling this problem, huge problem. So just a noble effort. One of the things that struck me was, on the online communities, is that it's just so easy. Actually, late at night, you can just open up Google, you go to Reddit, Facebook. I think is a huge source of support groups there. And one thing that struck me was you guys are taking this B2B approach, which means that somebody has to sign up, be a part of the structured system, have a therapist, as opposed to just firing up a laptop and going to Google. Couldn't you actually apply a lot of this to address the toxicity that you talked about? Because the example you spoke about on someone trying to kill themselves could just as well be detected on like an LEO for support forum or a Reddit subreddit or a Facebook group. So why this approach as opposed to actually using the data that you guys are training off of?
So where we want to go is to actually validate this out and sell to healthcare systems. And our main aim is to sell to the VA. But to be able to do that, we need the validation. So we need these controlled populations where we can look for outcomes. So we can look at engagement retention. We can look at quantified improvements in general health, wellness, and all of these things, which is only possible in this B2B manner. But as we showed in our secondary vertical, we have an API service coming, which goes out to other people who have their own platforms. This is especially important for case management organizations that we are partnering with, because they provide the wraparound services for these extremely expensive patients who go into ER visits. So with our algorithms running on their existing text medium, we can immediately start scaling faster.
Mar.
Yeah, I wonder if your software, by analyzing all these conversations, can also help these people decide on the composition of the group, on the type of the group, on the matching, et cetera.
Our aim is to personalize therapy. If you look at therapy, it has not changed in decades. CBT was the standard back then, CBT is the standard now. The state of the art is asking people to self-report how suicidal they are on a scale of 10. Therapy needs to be revolutionized. What we are looking at, especially for case management organizations, why certain case providers perform better than others. What are the data metrics and functional features which make them more effective? And then we look at which groups and which members are compatible with who for the best form of recovery. And with this data-driven approach, for the first time we can do this. And we are being funded by the National Institute of Health and Johns Hopkins to do just that.
Spencer, last question.
There are a lot of amazing things about using the phone for therapy. One of the potential challenges is the user's expectation for immediacy and feedback right away. What is your user promise in that regard, in terms of if I pull out my phone and I'm in need, how quickly I'll be able to get the feedback that I need, and how do you think through that?
So one of the main things is the peer support, which is why we brought it in. Because these are large groups from 7 to even more 10, someone is generally always on call. And because we go to first responders and police officers, there's that intense feeling of fraternity. So someone will get up if there is something urgent to just text in.
All right, give it up one more time for Sunrise.
Woo!